Hello truth seekers. So I just wanted to do a quick video for those of you who may be curious how timeanddate.com determines the so-called Equinox event. So what you gotta do is go to Google and type in timeanddate.com and you'll see that, and once you get to the home page, go to Sun and Moon and then go to Seasons. And this will tell you a nice snapshot summary of when all the equinoxes are, solstices are, for example, there is the past 2019 claimed timing of the equinox, and you've got to pay close attention to this acronym here because it does make a difference. Notice some of them are Eastern Standard Time, some are, I forget what that means, but you might actually have to adjust an hour depending on depending on that acronym. So then let's go for a little more information. There's several different ways you can get to this, but here's one explanation on equinoxes. So they say Latin literally means equal day and night. But they say this isn't exactly accurate according to them. And you can read all this, but I'm going to show you kind of what I think is the important part down here. They're explaining how the geometric center of the sun, how they measure time. And they measure time not by the geometric center. You'll read here, they define sunrise as the moment the upper edge of the sun's disk becomes visible above the horizon. And so likewise for determining like equinox events, it's when the edge of the sun is crossing the equator or the celestial equator. And there's another thing I want to jump to real quick. Somewhere, I think this was under September equinox, there's a note in here that they do say that the equinox is happening the moment the sun crosses the celestial equator, which is that imaginary line above the Earth's equator. So, let's see if I can click on that. So it's when I guess I gotta get my bearings, but it's not when the sun is centered in this bullseye. Like it's reading from the edge, and so that's the big difference. And I think it does have some difference, and you kind of have to pay attention to it. And they go on to talk about the equilux events. I don't know if they actually call it equilux, but this is actually equal night and equal darkness according to them at different latitudes, and they claim that you'll never see equal light and darkness at the equator, and that is mainly because of this thing. They are measuring time based off of the edge of the sun rather than when the geometric center of the sun crosses over. So this was really, we're going to get into some of their data in a minute, but I was just curious to find out what they had to say about their data. Like, okay, they have this nice note that I like, talking about when the sun crosses the celestial equator. So I sent an email and I asked them, like, is this all calculation based, or do you guys, is there any observational data that you guys ever do to confirm the calculated data? And they essentially just kind of gave me this automated response, and I guess there was an important thing in here, but I mean, it's essentially saying these movements are very predictable, and I do believe that, but I do believe also there might be some subtleties that we need to pay attention to. But somewhere in there, they had this line, and so I sent a follow-up email and asked, like, what does this mean? And just so you know, like, upon the heels of this, I kind of tried to find any kind of observatories around the world that actually are measuring data, and I found this nice list. Maybe I'll try and include a link in the description below this video, but it's on Wikipedia, and if you just Google list of astronomical observatories, you'll find it. And this is unfortunately saying many are no longer in operation, because, and I hear this, but look at this. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different observatories. So I mean, it's on my to-do list to keep kind of networking and reaching out and asking these observatories if any of them actually collect data. But I've done this before in the past, and I've done it a little bit recently. I did start to reach out to some of these guys, and you kind of hear the same answer over and over again. It's almost like a lot of these observatories have just become either museums or just kind of science displays. Like, they don't seem to be collecting any real data anymore. They're just like taking people on tours and letting them look at random things. But so I think I found like the number one, supposedly like the number one solar observatory in the world, and that was off the north. It was on an island, I think part of Spain, but it was like off the coast, what would that be, northwest coast of Africa, somewhere right around there. But it was part of I forget its name. But I contacted them and I asked them, surely, if the internet is claiming you're number one, surely you have data? And unfortunately, I heard back from them, and it sounds like they don't have data. But anyway, so a lot of this is calculated, and I'm still trying to, maybe if I do get a response back from them about what they do periodically to monitor this, maybe I'll include that in the description below or comments below. But so let's actually look at some of their data now. And so this is my neck of the woods. And so the thing you gotta watch out for is you can't just come in here. And remember, the date they were saying was the 23rd. So if we go back, they were saying it was the 23rd, and this acronym too, remember. So we might as well go to the 23rd, and we look, and we're going down, and it's like, where's the equal daylight? And oh, maybe it's somewhere right around here. But wait a second, it's the 25th and the 26th. And so I guess the quick thing of what I'm trying to say here is you got to be careful about these times. I think somehow they must all be like a little off, and I think it has to do with where they're like measuring time. Like, they're measuring it based off of the edge rather than the geometric centroid, and that's why these times don't appear to line up. Another thing is that you can kind of look at possibly are these bearing numbers. So like on this, like 90 is like due east and 270 is like due west or something. So you can kind of look at the rise and the set location of the sun. And I don't know if you might actually have to subtract off a degree or add a degree depending on what your latitude is. Or maybe that is bearing regardless of your latitude. I just want to make this video kind of as a talking point, so if any of you understand this better, please feel free to comment and enlighten us all. But so you could look at that data too and see, okay, there's 90, 90, and there's 89, 71, 70. So this one's actually looks to be the closest to like due east and due west, but it's on the 24th again, so that doesn't seem to have correlation to the date they were saying. And I found if you jump over here, it'll be more interesting when we look at places near the equator, but this is an interesting number. These are nowhere near 90 or 270, so bear that in mind as we look at some other places real quick. So here is Singapore, and they are, I believe, very, very close to the equator. So let's see, so you'll never, in this calculation here of light and darkness, like if you're looking for equal light and darkness, apparently near the equator, because of the way they calculate that geometric center versus edge of sun, you will never see equal light and darkness when you get near the equator in this data. So, but you can look at this due east and due west bearing information. And so there's 90, 90, 270, 270, 89, So that's really, so it looks like, you know, either one of these two, the 23rd or the 24th. But then here, remember what I said, jump over here, and this is solar noon time. And look at this one. I'm trying to figure this one out. Please chime in if you know what's going on here, but this one appears to be closest to 90, not this one. Oh, wow, look at that. That one is even closer. I didn't notice that before I made this video. Wow, yeah, so that's actually the closest one, but it looks kind of off from there. So if anyone knows what's going on there, please explain that to me. So here's another location near the equator, and again, you're not going to see equal light and darkness here. But if we look for these bearings, looks like this one, the 23rd, so that seems to match what they were saying. All of these seem to be pointing towards the 23rd for this location. Like this 89.9 is closest to 90, 270, 90, that's all right on. And this is another spot near the equator. What do they say? Time's not going to line up, but looking at the bearings, could be the 22nd or the 23rd. And look at these are already way off, so maybe we're getting away from the equator and there's something going on here. I'd love to hear someone's explanation on that. I think I looked at one more. Somewhere near Brazil, so. And that is also not gonna show equal light and darkness, but the bearings kind of look like 22nd or 23rd, but these are not quite there. So that's just again kind of a video I wanted to do, kind of a conversation starter, share what information I know about timeat8.com, but also encourage discussion about this. So you can explain what's going on here, but from the looks of things, you know, it kind of looks like this is a key piece of information, and I really like this, them saying, except for the fact that it's not the geometric center, but it's the edge that's crossing the celestial equator. But I say I like this because it's something I can kind of really understand, like I think what a lot of us are hopefully after is to somehow be able to observe things and confirm these movements via some kind of observation or measurement. And so when I see this is like something almost kind of more tangible that I can wrap my mind around instead of all this theoretical stuff. But it doesn't sound like anyone's actually measuring. So I don't know, food for thought. The last thing I want to mention is, if you've seen a couple of my other season videos that I've done, durations of the seasons, are the seasons equal? When you look at this data, I took this data and put it in Excel and actually found the exact times between these events. There was equal time, very close to equal time. I think it was slightly off just because of something I call duration of a sine day, but it was very close to equal time between June solstice and December solstice, and then from December solstice to June solstice. What I'm trying to say is it was equal time between solstices, half years, but the equinoxes are like ahead and behind, and what that seems to suggest from this data is that the seasons are not equal. And there certainly does appear to be some signs that occur, like, you know, the straight line pattern, and there are lots of different methods. People with the armillaries sighting in. So I'm very open, you know, Genesis 1:14 says signs, and so I can't deny that that certainly looks like an obvious sign, straight line method, you know, an armillary zeroing in. But the only weird thing is, and maybe it's not weird, but I mean, I guess I was just kind of under the impression my whole life that the seasons should be equal, And, oh man, maybe I didn't Google it. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of, what is that? Tekufa? But Tekufa, I guess that is a word we read, I think, in the scriptures, but I mean, tradition interprets that to be like equal seasons. And of course, Enoch, for whatever that's worth, if he's right or wrong, definitely talks about equal seasons. I mean, people that claim solar calendars that have 30-day solar months plus the extra seasonal day, the days of remembrance, like many of these Dead Sea Scroll calendars out there, or if you just don't do Dead Scroll but you call yourself a solar calendar, like the thing is, if you're claiming 30-day solar months, seasons are a result of the sun. Like, so seasons are solar and solar months are solar. And so if you're going to have equal solar months, then you should be having equal solar seasons. And according to this data, that doesn't seem to be the case. But I wonder, and it's an ongoing effort to try and confirm what is going on. I just want to make sure, like I said, the straight line method is really something that almost doesn't seem, it just seems like too clear to be any doubt around that. But I want to make sure eventually that the straight line method is not like the equilux event, where based on your different latitudes, it could be happening on a slightly different day. So for me, I'd like to see people kind of at all different latitudes seeing the equinox or the straight line on the same day. And I think most of the observers I've been in communication with around the world are kind of at the same latitudes, both above and below the equator, but I've never seen anyone near the equator confirm this sign. So I would say it's an ongoing study, but it would definitely land a lot of potential for the straight line method, and potentially for, I guess, the seasons to not be equal, because that's what the straight line method seems to be suggesting. If we could get someone at the equator someday to confirm the straight line method, because if they see it on the same day that everyone else sees it, I think that'll be kind of the nail in the coffin on that one. But I still thought the seasons were supposed to be equal. So let me know what you think about that or any of this. And stay tuned, because we're coming up on the another seasonal day here, the winter solstice, and it'll be very interesting to see if the if it is equal timing from the summer solstice, regardless of kind of the timing of those equinox events. So anyway, I was rambling here, so I'm going to let you go. Shalom, and may Allah bless you to continually seek out His truth in love with a pure heart.